Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, one of my good friends, the Eagles beat reporter from NJ.com, Chris Franklin's going to join me on the show to talk about all things Eagles training camp starting next week. Training camp battles for starting positions, depth battles as well. Kyler Murray just got a big contract. What about Jalen Hurts? Are the Eagles looking in that and expecting those kind of numbers for next year? What would Hurts need to do to earn that extension? All of that and more on a jam-packed edition of Locked On Eagles coming up next.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to a Thursday edition of the podcast. I'm Louis DiBiase, as always, joining you Monday through Friday. We're your only daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast on all podcast platforms, on YouTube as well, and on Twitter, at Locked On Birds and at DiBiase LOE. So excited for today's edition of the show. I can feel football in the air. I live in Buffalo, New York right now. It was a super cloudy, 68-degree day with some wind. It felt like shorts and hoodie weather. Look, I love the summer, but once training camp starts, you just got to get me to football season, because once training camp starts, I'm in football mode. So yeah, I'm still going to the beach. I have a New Orleans trip coming up for a bachelor party. Still got some weddings, but the minute football starts, I need the real thing. So we got to get there. And I'm just juiced to talk about the Eagles right now. So I decided to bring on one of my good friends, the Eagles beat reporter from NJ.com, Chris Franklin. He's going to talk to me today about Jalen Hurts, his potential contract extension next year compared to Kyler Murray, who just got a bag and a half from the Arizona Cardinals. He also talked about some of the camp battles that he's going to be watching closely when he's reporting at the NovaCare Complex starting next Tuesday. Had some really interesting things to say as well about Johnathan Gannon's defense and how different it's going to look in year two compared to year one with new personnel. And he had some really interesting things to say about Gannon's, not only his job security with the Eagles, but his potential as a head coach. There really is no middle ground with Gannon, and I thought it was a fascinating topic to discuss with Chris. We'll get into that later on in the show, but what I wanted to start with him about, and you'll hear it in segment 2, is about Jalen Hurts and that contract extension that is looming large. And I know that may feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves as the 2022 season hasn't even started yet. There's so many expectations for this football team to be one of the best in the NFC and to potentially make a deep playoff run. And we're just trying to figure out if Jalen Hurts can be the franchise quarterback and take enough steps to be worth even talking about a contract. But you do have to look down the road like that when you see a guy like Kyler Murray get the second highest contract in the NFL right now for any player when it comes to his annual salary, outside of only Aaron Rodgers. Because Kyler Murray, although I don't agree with it, I think Kyler Murray has shown a way higher ceiling, an MVP-like ceiling at times as a passer. A lot of people do put him in the same tier as Jalen Hurts. So when you see a guy like Kyler get that contract, you start to think okay, if Jalen Hurts takes a step this year and the Eagles make the playoffs and win a playoff game, are the Eagles going to be comfortable giving out that kind of contract again, like they did with Carson Wentz at the end of the 2018 season? A lot of people, again, they like to compare Hurts and Kyler. They're similar in style with their mobility. They have a similar track record of winning right now. But again, overall, I feel like looking at that contract today, if you ask me right now, and again, 2022 hasn't even started, we don't know what Hurts looks like yet. And so far, signs are pointing to that he's going to improve even more, as he always does. But I looked at that contract, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I know people compare the two, but I felt 10 times better about seeing Murray get those numbers. If you would have put Jalen Hurts, I tried to think about it in that way. Remove Kyler Murray's name from that Adam Schefter tweet or Ian Rappaport, and you put in Jalen Hurts, and I see those numbers. I wouldn't feel comfortable at all giving him that deal right now. And Kyler, even some people think it's a stretch, but again, you look at the beginning of the 2020 season and 2021, Murray at least showed an MVP caliber of ability as a passer. And of course, it didn't last the entire season. He hasn't been able to sustain it. He's kind of collapsed 2 seasons in a row down the stretch, but at least he showed that ability at times that makes you be like, okay, we were 10-2 with Kyler, kind of like Carson Wentz was with Philly in 2017. We see those flashes. We've made the playoffs. He's 24 years old. He's only going to get better. He has all the tools physically with his arm and his legs. We're going to pay him that deal. You got to see that from Jalen Hurts in 2022, at least at times. Like, you don't, even Carson Wentz, most guys don't sustain MVP levels of play throughout their entire career, right? Carson Wentz had that 2017. And then outside of that, most years he's a 20-plus touchdown guy, under 30 touchdowns, though, and under 8 interceptions. Lamar Jackson won MVP in 2019. He hasn't had an MVP season since then, but he's had a bunch of really good years. Jalen Hurts, he has a certain floor. You want the floor to be really good, top-tier play, and then he has MVP-like ability if you're going to give him that contract. And so far, we haven't seen that with Jalen like we've seen at times with Kyler Murray. So you can compare the two, and I think it's fair to a certain degree, but I felt way more comfortable seeing those numbers with Murray today than I would with Hurts. And hopefully Hurts can get there this year because the Eagles are proactive. They like to get deals done sooner. And Jalen Hurts' team is going to come to the Eagles because most quarterbacks like to, after year 3, start talking about that mega deal. So he needs to take big strides this year to start considering that kind of contract because there's no middle ground, guys, when it comes to quarterback deals. I know I saw a lot of people on Twitter today saying, oh, Jalen wouldn't even get this kind of deal. Let's say he took a small step forward this year from 2021 and, they do win a playoff game, but he doesn't take an MVP-like step, or he doesn't take a massive step that makes you feel comfortable about him long-term. He's not going to command top tier money. You can give him 25 to 30 million in that second tier of contracts. No, look, you can't. If Jalen Hurts is just good, not great, if he's still that next quarterback up that has a playoff win and he's only 24 years old and that kind of track record over 2 years and with the rushing stats as well, you have to give him top market. Because what are you going to do? Go to a quarterback and say, we're comfortable enough to make you our guy and give you a contract extension, but we don't believe you. We don't believe in you as much as, these 7 quarterbacks. We want to pay you like the 8th best quarterback in the league, not first or second. You can't. That's not how it works. The next quarterback up that a team is comfortable paying, they think he's worth that deal, he gets that money. If you want to, in any way, if you wanted to pay a quarterback 25 to 30 million and you're not comfortable paying him top value, then guess what? You shouldn't be paying that quarterback. You shouldn't be paying. There's no more middling at quarterback anymore when it comes to contracts. And just in general, teams shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be the Minnesota Vikings or the Carolina Panthers or the San Francisco 49ers before they moved up for Trey Lance. You shouldn't be doing that anymore. If you're not comfortable giving Jalen Hurts next year, that's the question you got to ask at the end of the season. Are we comfortable now giving him that Kyler deal? If the answer is no, then you can probably replace his production with a rookie quarterback on a cheap deal worth another 4 to 5 years of team control. You got to ask that question at the end. And because the Eagles, they're not going to pay for a good, not great quarterback. It's make or break, especially with their 2023 ammunition and a strong quarterback class. He's going to have to take a big step this year, and I really hope he does it. I'm so excited to see Jalen and this entire team hit the field and get things going for what could be a very special 2022 starting next Tuesday. I keep thinking it's Wednesday, but it's already Thursday. So we're only 5 days away now from the start of Eagles camp. So I brought on my good friend, the Eagles beat reporter for NJ.com, Chris Franklin, to help me preview training camp, go further in. We did our Camp Battles show on Monday. Gino dove into players on the hot seat yesterday. We also talked a lot about the newcomers on Tuesday for the 2022 season, how guys like Jordan Davis are going to fit in, Hassan Riddick. I got deeper into those topics with Chris Franklin and also talked about this Jalen Hurts topic as that contract looms large, and so too looms a very high-pressure situation for him in the 2022 season. All that and more coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. But first, a shout-out to the best tasting protein bar on the planet. And honestly, it doesn't even taste like a protein bar. It tastes like a candy bar. I used to hate protein bars until Built Bar came into my life. From the people who invented healthy and tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing coconut brownie chunk Built Bar. Well, guess what? Your friends at Built have given Coconut Brownie Chunk the Puffs treatment. That's right, the Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar flavor that you love in a deliciously chewy marshmallow. Covered in 100% real chocolate, it's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They're good for you. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, and all delicious. Coconut Brownie Chunk Puffs are only here for a limited time. So head over to Built.com now to make sure that you don't miss out. They're going to go fast because they taste absolutely amazing. And best of all, it's all the flavor and none of the guilt because they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something good that is good for you. Head over to Built.com today. Use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, and you're going to get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off. And guys, too, want to shout out the Locked On NFL podcast. You guys got to go check out the series that we're doing this week. We teamed up with our official sportsbook, BetOnline, to put together a list of the 50 most valuable players in the NFL when it comes to which stars in the league move the betting lines the most. Where did Jalen Hurts end up? You can find out on today's edition of the show. It's free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. All right, everybody, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles. Really excited about my next guest on the show. He is the beat reporter for the Philadelphia Eagles at NJ.com. A great friend of the show, was on to help me preview training camp last year. It's Chris Franklin. Chris, how's it going, man? Welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's doing well. Can't wait. Who could believe that we're always here at training camp time, man? It's crazy.
I know. We were talking right before the show how we were trying to just, detox for a month because once training camp starts, it really just takes over our lives until, honestly, again, next May, with the draft process and the offseason too. So, and Chris, there's so much, optimism and anticipation for the Eagles season in 2022 because of all the moves they made this offseason. Can you really feel that? I know you've been covering the Eagles now for a few years, and there's been a lot of hyped up off seasons, and this feels like one of those, right? On paper, I think it's justified.
Yeah, because, when you look at the 2020 season, there was so much uncertainty of what was going on with that, given the pandemic, and you saw some pieces. You thought, okay, this team could be good. It could be good, but then we obviously know 4 wins. Then you had the uncertainty with Sirianni, so you're still feeling this time with all the additions, such as A.J. Brown, such as Hassan Reddick. When you look at that, it just gives a different feeling now of saying, hey, you know what? We know what to expect offensively, defensively when you look at Sirianni, and then you look at what the pieces they have now. If there's a little buzz going around, you start to feel when you talk to some people around.
Absolutely. And you wrote a story, this past week about this too. It feels like this roster is ready to go, right? It's like a NASCAR. It's a souped up F1, and now you just need the driver, right? And Jalen Hurts is the driver this year, and his second year as the full-time starting quarterback. But there's question marks like, okay, we know he can get this car to a certain speed, but can he get it to its full ceiling? And it's really interesting now too, Chris, seeing the Kyler Murray contract extension today. Everything's day by day, day at a time. You hear Hurts and the entire team say that, but you do look down the road with all the picks they have next offseason and Hurts' contract, his second contract looming. It's the elephant in the room. What say you? I mean, what does Hurts have to do this year to not only earn that Kyler Murray type of contract, but hold off the Eagles from, really trying to use those assets they collected next year to maybe replace him?
I think if he has to show some improvement when it comes to his accuracy overall. Yeah. I think we start to see he has a more compact throwing motion, and you look at his footwork, it's a lot better than what it was, especially when he was a rookie. So he's made strides in that aspect. So I think if he has around 4,600 combined yards, by I say that, I mean passing and also running yards is right in perfect role, especially the way that this team has showed the propensity to throw the ball. You don't want him running for about 800, 900 yards like he did beforehand. But I think overall, if he puts something in that range and this team wins a playoff game or remarkably is competitive in a playoff game, I think you'll see him be extended. He's here in the long term. If not, if he looks like he struggles early on, his team looks like it's sputtering, then you start to wonder, those 2 first-round picks when they got from the Saints, it might be looming right there to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good quarterback class next year, and you don't want to get too ahead of yourself because of how good this roster looks and you're trying to maximize this season. But, that is the long-term objective is, for sustained success is to get this quarterback position right. So you can eventually feel comfortable giving a Kyler Murray type of deal out to Hurts or whoever the next quarterback is. And Chris, you kind of laid out there kind of a blueprint of the numbers he needs to meet, maybe the team expectations. If he gets a playoff win, to you, does there have to be like a certain way he gets to that point with the passing yardage, with the team success, because there's been teams that make deep playoff runs, but it's not really on the backs of the quarterback. Like if he takes maybe, some small improvements from last year, does he have to take like a Wentz 2017 like step to eventually earn that contract and hold off the Eagles from replacing him? Or, just if he takes another nice step, would that be enough?
I think it's all, especially given the way that the league values quarterbacks, the way they evaluate it now, he has to make a Wentz-like step. I think you really truly have to. You have to show that you can go ahead and throw into a tight window. You have to show that you can lead your receivers consistently. And I think he has the tools to do that. Now it's just a matter of doing that and also reading the coverages too. Because, we all heard what the Tampa Bay players said about him when they came to the day. He can't read. I think it's more he gets experience. He's going to be in the same system now for 2 years in a row. So I think when you factor in all that, I think the Eagles and I think Hurts himself expects him to see market improvement. And then I think if he does say have, 62% completion rate, then he has about like 600, 700 rushing yards on top of that, then I think the team will feel comfortable with it, especially given that all the weapons they have around them now.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, do you feel like, I don't know, is there a scenario? I know the Eagles like to be pretty proactive with contracts, and you saw Kyler Murray, and a lot of guys get that deal, before that fifth-year option comes into play. Carson got that too after 2018. Is there a scenario, though, where maybe this year Hurts looks maybe similar to 2021 or a little bit better, and they don't replace him, but they also don't pay him either next offseason? I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but just thinking about some potential scenarios based on what Hurts looks like this year. Do they go into year 4 without either resolved?
I think when you start to look at if he has some minor, like if he doesn't take that bigger leap and see a minor, I think they may say, okay, you know what, let's just see what he does next year and then make our decision based off that. And then by then, I think if they decide to do that way, then I think they use one of the picks on a quarterback, let him sit and wait, and then you have both of them going into camp. If Hurts doesn't take a route, we may be looking at another Rodgers/Love thing.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Chris, let's transition, with training camp starting next Tuesday. We're less than a week away. Of course, eyes are on Jalen Hurts, but there's a lot of other positions here. We're seeing some starting camp battles, also battles to make the 53-man roster, the depth of this team. Is there maybe a specific starting job for grabs on offense or defense and maybe a depth battle that you're most interested in? I don't feel like there's as many starting jobs available this year. The starting lineup seems pretty set, but there's some spots, and then there's a lot of depth battles. Are you really interested in a few specifically?
The one I'm really looking right now to is not the most glamorous position per se, but the right guard battle.
Yeah.
Because after Brandon Brooks left and retired, now you have that whole, you don't know who's going to be in there. Isaac Seumalo during OTAs, he was in there, but then you have to worry about how well is his foot coming back from that Liz Frank injury suffered week 3 against the Cowboys. Is it well enough? And then not only that, he's switching from the left side back to the right side, something he hasn't done since his rookie year. And that's a whole thing getting used to that. And then you have to worry about the chemistry of Lane Johnson. So I'm worried to see how well he makes that acclimation, that makes that change for there. Also, I think another thing I look at is also that third/fourth receiver role. I would be like when you look at Quez, Watkins, and Zach Pascal, both brings their own unique style to that offense. Quez is more of a speed guy. I want to see if he has developed the entire route tree. We all know he has the speed. He can make the thing. If he can show that he can still find ways to operate in the middle of the field, be that 3 guy is good. You got Zach Pascal as well too, who is familiar with Nick Sirianni, familiar with his offense, familiar how Sirianni likes to run those routes. I think that's another battle to look at. And then finally the safety thing, because Rodney McLeod's not manning that defensive defensive backfield anymore. So now you got Marcus F. Jaquiski Tartt. I'm going to have fun there in camp when it comes to that.
I know, man. I haven't got the name right for like 7 years.
Jaquiski Tartt. Excuse me, my apologies. And then Anthony Harris. So those 3, I wouldn't be sorry. I think those 3 guys are battling for those 2 spots. And I don't think Anthony Harris is so much as a lock as it may appear to be, because if Tartt plays, I think Tartt can play. Is the strong safety spot. I wouldn't be surprised to see all 3 on the field as well too, with Tartt being on a big nickel role in certain situations. So I think all three will definitely get playing time. I think all three make the team.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a matter of who's going to get more snaps.
That is really interesting because I think most people would agree that Anthony Harris is like the favorite. I think everybody knows they're going to rotate through those players, but he would probably be the betting favorite to lead this team in snaps at the end of the season. That's interesting, man. I agree. I think it's wide open at safety. I like what you said about Quez Watkins and Zach Pascal. It's super interesting because obviously we know the love Nick Sirianni has for Zach Pascal, but we also saw the strides Quez Watkins took last year. And for some reason, I was thinking about the other day, Quez and Kenneth Gainwell, two role players on offense right now that showed a lot of promise in their first year being a part of this offense. Quez, of course, was in his second year, but barely played in his rookie season. And I was going to ask you, are you expecting a bigger role for those two than last year, a smaller role? It's interesting because I feel like this team's going to pass more, and I don't know if Gainwell is going to have to compete for as many snaps like he did last year with Scott and Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, that is. And then with Quez, they're going to throw more, but you did add A.J. Brown, and they want to get Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert the ball more. You talked about Zach Pascal. More or less for those two guys in year two as, role players of this offense, or maybe it's a push?
I'll start with Quez. I think that this team, they were really talking, Howie Roseman, they viewed him as a number 2 receiver.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I think he's a borderline 2 right now. I think he still has to develop those little aspects I talked earlier. But I think you'll see a lot more involvement with him because given that they have a little bit of everything when you look at this, at what each receiver brings in that group. And I think if you have another one, when you look at the teams that are able to go to the conference championship games, the more different variety you have in receivers that are productive enough gives you a better shot. So I look at that. And as for Gainwell, I see him as well too, getting some more runs well too. Not only just for, hey, you know what, he was good in the red zone. Surprisingly, you think a guy like his size, he's good in the red zone? Yeah, 5 red zone touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. It is surprising, but it was good for that. I look at what he can do as in the passing game as the check down, because we know a lot of teams are going to be playing those safeties way back. They don't want to get burnt, and then they play it in that way too. And if Hurts decides, hey, you know what, I'm just going to take what the defense is giving me, and those little dump off passes, those little flare routes, the wheel routes, using Gainwell's speed and his receiving ability, I think it's going to be good. I think if for Gainwell, it's going to be a matter of how he develops as a pass blocker, because if you can't block on when you're not getting the ball, you're not going to be on the field with that. So if he shows improvement in that, then I think it's going to be, you'll see a lot more Gainwell this year.
Chris, before I let you go, just to look at the defense, I know you mentioned safety, but just overall, Johnathan Gannon's defense in year 2, it's a lot of new pieces, right? Of course, as you mentioned, Jaquiski Tartt at safety. You've got maybe 2 new starting linebackers with Nakobe Dean and Kazir White, or just one, depending on what TJ Edwards' role is. Jordan Davis, Hassan Riddick, a lot of new pieces. I know Gannon got a lot of flack for maybe last year at times being maybe too conservative and just the way he overall coached this defense. A lot of people pointed to personnel. Do you think of this defense, how different do you think they're going to look with Gannon in year 2 compared to last year with that improved personnel?
I think we'll see a lot more mixing of the looks and the coverages, and you see more of the disguising of coverage as well too. When I look back at what that game one against the opening game against the Atlanta Falcons last year, to me, I thought that's what Gannon really wanted to do in terms of mixing the odd front, the under and over under front, the 3-4 and the 4-3 looks, mixing the different coverages. I think he really wanted to do it, but when you have guys like Alex Singleton, who was really good, special teams guy and a good reserve linebacker, but you have him being the linchpin defense. We all know what we have with Eric Wilson. So we have guys like that in your second level kind of limits you a little bit on there. But I think now that he has Bradbury and he has that corners as well too on the outside, and now that you have more edge rushers, you can do a lot more things. I think the more onus I think the back 7 is going to be okay. I think when you add Hassan Reddick and you add Jordan Davis, I think the onus has to be on that pass rush. And I think he's going to draw up a few little different wrinkles now that he knows that he has pieces that can be able to do coverage in the back 7. So because he can't finish with next to last in sacks again this season. But personally, I think Gannon's going to do that, and I would be surprised. I think this is Gannon's last year in Philadelphia either way, because I think he's that good of a defensive coordinator, and we saw he was a finalist for that Houston Texans job. I think he's getting a head coaching job somewhere else. Or given all these pieces and his team underachieves, I think they may start to look around elsewhere.
That is an interesting point. There's really no middle ground. Yeah, you're right, which is weird. It's like you either get a head coaching job or you're fired. Normally there's not that, wide of, the two spectrums when it comes to results of the season. But yeah, for sure. Chris, my last question for you. I am curious because it is year 2 with Gannon and there's a lot of new pieces that are going to really help him dive into fully, what he wanted to do. As you said, he started off in Atlanta doing with Jordan Davis, Hassan Riddick, players like that. But you still have a lot of guys from that traditional Jim Schwartz 4-3 style still, if you will. Brandon Graham coming back, Fletcher, Cox, Javon Hargrave, Derek Barnett. Removing guys like Hassan Riddick and Milton Williams not Milton Williams, Jordan Davis that are key pieces to the new scheme. How do you think Gannon's going to use the other guys that have been a part of this defense for longer and that have been in different schemes? How do they fit now that I think they are going to dive deeper into what you said, the more traditional Gannon-like looks that they started the season with last year? Like, how are they going to use Graham, Cox, and those veterans?
I think it's going to be a matter of just basically whatever best. It's going to be week to week, whatever helps them win the game. I think when you look at, you have, and just like I spoke about the offense earlier, you have those type of guys on defense now. You have a team that's really bad against the run. Well, you have defensive. You have really good at running the ball. Then hey, you know what? You got the 3 defensive tackles. Look, you can use that way. Use a 3-4, stack them up. Hell, see a 5-1 maybe as well too. If you got a team that likes to pass the ball, well, now you have Kaiser White. You can put those guys in cover. I think it's going to. You can still use the guys. Like I think Fletcher Cox still has a little bit left in there. Yeah. Javon Hargrave has stuff to prove because he's contract year coming up as well too. So I think a lot of these guys that were here last year, they're familiar with the system already, they're familiar with the terminology. I think they'll feel a little bit more comfortable as well too. So I think that all that stuff is going to help in, and they're still going to be able to acclimate themselves and still be able to play at a high level. And I think overall it's going to help this defense improve.
So excited for Eagles training camp. Starts next Tuesday at the NovaCare Complex. Make sure you follow Chris Franklin, the Eagles reporter for NJ.com, on Twitter at @CFranklinNews. Chris, really excited to continue to follow your coverage all throughout camp. Such an exciting year coming up for the Birds, and you're one of my favorite beats. So appreciate you coming on the show, man, as always, and we'll have you back on soon.
I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I think with that last compliment, I think I owe you something on your cash. I'm just kidding.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Appreciate it.